Well, hi for the first time, you guys.
Hey.
What's up?
We've been doing this for a while now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right, Colin?
2.5 months?
Really, that long?
Very specific.
I know, yeah. I was just waiting for him to back me up, but that was very specific backing me up.
5 episodes of every 2 weeks.
Yeah, that was smart. So I wanted to take us back to where we each bring a topic or a question to ask the other guys. We have no idea what we're going to ask each other, so we're going to get genuine reactions from each other. I wanted to go back to that, see how we do. And I was actually thinking, Nathan, you could go first.
Oh, I've never done that before.
You've never gone first?
I've never gone first.
In all 5 episodes, you've never gone first?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. At
Was
least never
Buttermilk
with...
not first?
No, that was in the middle. Because we went oldest to youngest the first time, youngest to oldest the next time, and there were 2 episodes that were different format, I think.
Yeah. And that makes sense because the middle child in a family is usually always forgotten. So it just makes sense that you would be forgotten as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a middle child.
Between us 3, you are.
Oh. I'm not smart like Colin. I can't do the brain calculations.
But I'm not a middle child. It was 2.5 months.
But yeah, I can go first. I consulted my list of things I wanted to pick your guys' brains about. And I just jot down little things. I'm like, I want to see what the guys think about this. And I noticed recently one of the social media platforms, I'm counting like YouTube in there, converted their like button to a heart button for comments. And I think now, don't quote me on this, but all the social media accounts that I use and know about, the like button is now a heart button, or at least has the option for a heart button. And some of them, it's the only option. And I wonder if the fact that we love things, I mean, you're scrolling through Instagram and you just double tap, and that's all it takes to love something. Has that decreased the value of the word or the appreciation of the emotion or act of love? And what do you guys think about that?
No, that makes sense. When it's the only reaction, I don't view it as me loving something. In my mind, I'm still thinking I'm liking it. But that makes sense that a lot of people may be thinking that way. But because Facebook still has multiple options, if I just like something, I'll like it. If I actually want to care for it, I'll do if I love something like, oh, that's amazing, I'll do the heart. But if it's something like, oh, I love that, but that's not cool that it happened or something like that, or I don't fully agree with the results, then I'll do the heart care hugging emoji thing.
Which is new.
Yeah.
Brought to us in the middle of COVID, I think, because they thought people needed it.
But it was hard to because you don't want to just like something. That's why there was the heart. But then it was weird to heart because it's not like I love that happened to you. Mm-hmm. So it's almost more like a sympathy emoji or reaction.
Yeah, I sympathize.
I just see it as an upvote. I see it like Reddit. Reddit helped me see upvote, downvote. I wish you could downvote on a lot more. I wish you could downvote on TikTok.
That would be interesting.
Actually.
Yeah.
I wish at least a downvote worked like Pandora worked. And so if you downvoted something, it wouldn't show up on your profile. You would see less.
Yeah, because it may not be appropriate to downvote on Facebook. That would be awkward. But if you downvoted to where then it was just for your own personal algorithm to where I don't want to see that, then that would make sense. I saw though that they're taking away dislikes from YouTube, or at least certain YouTube accounts.
Oh, really? The people that they feel would be sensitive or
I think it's because there were a lot of conservatives disliking a bunch of videos of President Biden. So they're let's remove that. And I think some other things too, but that was the one that kind of made the headlines.
Well, I mean, you guys answered my question, I think. Not really, actually. No, I don't think you did.
So you were asking what we think about people being too quick to say they love something.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general we use that word pre-social media even, it was, oh, I love such and such, this is the best teriyaki food ever, I love it so much, you know.
Right,
But
right. I do that all the time.
but just the fact that we're loving, 200 things a day as we scroll through our phone, does that decrease the value of the word? Do we need a new word for actual love?
I think that's the thing is like most, there's a lot of other languages that have different words for different types of love. And so, like, because when we actually love someone or love something, we're willing to give up a part of ourselves for it. Where when we're loving stuff on social media, most of the time it's not because we're giving up something for it. A lot of times it's because, oh, that made me feel happy or that made me feel good. I love that. And like, that's not actual love. That's not an accurate love. It's a happiness or joy, or it makes you feel good. And that's not wrong necessarily, but that's not necessarily love.
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes I do give altruistic likes to people, because I'm like, that was okay, but I want you to get the like. I want you to feel good about it. I want you to get the views. So
you are being self-sacrificial. You're exerting that energy to boost them up.
It takes a lot.
People's social media use is always very interesting to me. People can argue like, oh, a like, whatever. I don't know. People discount social media use, and I actually think it's a lot more real. I think people are a lot more free to scroll if they really don't like something. Whereas if I told them this thing in person, they would have to give me some sort of response that they think I'm seeking from them.
Yeah.
Because people...
It'd be too awkward to kind of just back away from the conversation.
Yeah, people control people. People like, I'm telling you this story so that I get my reaction from you that I need. And it's really funny to meet people who really do that. And I don't like succumbing to what people think I need to be acting like.
Yeah, I know that's a good point, and I definitely think that's happening, and that's good. But I think that's also there's the extremes, like you were talking about the extreme. On the other extreme, though, it's now people not waiting and listening to what someone else has to say because they already know what they want, and so they're not listening all the way to someone else's side of a conversation. Like, oh, I don't like that, scroll past. Instead of having to kind of sit through a conversation, which is sometimes awkward, sometimes bad. So I can see the extremes. But yeah, I do feel like social media didn't create new problems that people have. Rather, it's just highlighting problems people already have. But it's also helping in a lot of ways. Could you imagine going through all the COVID shutdowns and the pandemic without the access we have to entertainment, let alone communicating with each other?
I wouldn't talk to you guys as much as I do now, probably,
Yeah. Go for it, Colin. What's your topic or question?
Siblings.
Oh, hey, or what? Sorry.
Yeah.
Finish the question.
We all fall in different positions in our lineup of siblinghood. Oldest, Joey, second oldest, and then youngest.
Yeah.
Which I think has an effect on our trio, because we come from different places in our lineup, and it's interesting the mentality that you approach social situations with. Nathan, I can't imagine having... I actually cannot imagine, nor would I desire your position. The position of the youngest with much older siblings. Dude, like, all the sympathy there for
Nathan,
you.
Nathan, I just want to say, sucks to be you. Just from my perspective.
Yeah.
If I may, I can elaborate on that.
Go
unless
for
you
it.
have more introduction, Colin. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm not a 100% youngest. You can track people that are youngest tend to act like this, middle children like this, the second born, the third born, the first born, And interestingly, some of those trends do hold up. For me, being the youngest, I'm also almost like an only child because
Yeah.
of how much younger I am. Um, and so that is also like another dynamic. I'm a little bit of a mix of those things. Um, but yeah, I was bitter about it for a long time. I one, you know, my brother's 14 when I'm 5.
It's
Um,
nuts, dude.
and so you can imagine we didn't get along super well. By the time I was in like middle school, high school, and he's in his 20s, we actually got along really well, and we're some of the closest siblings now. Um, and then, but but yeah, very hard, and I was just very bitter about it, and I've, you know, like, well, how come I don't get to do what they're doing, and how come, you know, I want people around, I have nobody to do anything with, and but looking back and now in the present, it's great to have. It's like having aunts and uncles that are like super invested in you, like that actually know you. So think of your like coolest uncle, and everybody has like a cool uncle or a cool aunt, and they like get you, and they like taking you out for food and like investing in you, and they like, you feel like you can open up to them a little bit or something. They understand you, and then think of that as having 3 4 of them, um, but living with you and driving you to events. And I got to do a lot of things that kids my age wouldn't have done. You know, I hung out at college campuses sometimes. I went to concerts, and I got free food because they would take me places and buy me things, and probably better birthday presents. um, and then just better like support and wisdom. Sometimes you like talk to your older brother about something that maybe you don't want to talk to your parents about.
You also have three of them considering you their brother, and that has some serious advantages too,
Mm-hmm.
because you are protected,
Oh, for
and
sure.
um, that's where that train of thought stopped.
Yeah, yeah, definitely protected. I always have like, I value each of their inputs in my life, right? So even today, I'll call them up if I want to like hear their opinion on a situation. You know, what should I do about this? Yeah.
And Joey, you, with being the oldest, is a position that I am semi familiar with, but not to the degree that you. I mean, being the oldest. So, for example, one thing that I would what I hated being the second oldest and having three under me is if I would go to the kitchen and grab cereal, there was a train of three younger kids behind me grabbing cereal too. And you are not only the oldest, but the oldest of, I mean,
Seven, oldest of
seven?
seven. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about that while I grab a seltzer.
Okay. Well, it all
Hey,
started.
can I grab a seltzer too?
Sure, that's fine. Go for it, Nick.
Yeah.
I see and I follow.
I didn't even connect that.
That was good. Oh man.
My mic wasn't even on and it picked that laugh up. Okay, go ahead.
Question was, as the oldest sibling, how was it?
Yes, that was the question.
Yeah, it's really cool to be the oldest sibling. It's,
Okay, how's my Mac now?
Did you just spit all over it?
Yeah.
Not to be the same. Sorry, Joey, go ahead.
No, you're good. It probably the thing that frustrated me the most being the oldest sibling is there was at times that there were times where I kind of felt like the guinea pig, where there would be certain rules that were put in place since, the dawn of time or when we were born. And then with me, they're like, well, that clearly didn't work out, but we're not going to change it. And then it changed with like the next sibling or a couple down. Then it's like, whoa. Like one that it really shouldn't matter in the grand scheme of things. But one that always bugged me is we had to wait till we were 15 to watch Gladiator with Russell Crowe. As soon as I turned 15, everyone else got to watch Gladiator. And I was like, whoa, I waited this whole time. Anyways, that's not that important, but it's, things like that sometimes. There was a lot of pressure sometimes, like if I was placed in charge of making sure some chores happened, it was this weird ground where I was held responsible for making sure everyone did their jobs, but I also only had a certain amount of authority, and they knew that. So that was a challenge sometimes, and some siblings would respect you more than others. Um, Really cool. I mean, Nathan, you were talking about the age gap between you and your older siblings. Because there were seven of us, the age gap between me and my two youngest siblings, Benny and Anna, was 10 years and 11 years, which is the same age gap as between me and my youngest aunts. Um, and so when I moved out, I really did not know them that well. Or when I moved out over the years, I still viewed them as those little kids. And now, like, they're starting to drive. I mean, they're going to school and high school even. And so it's been really cool to be able to actually get to know them and be like, oh, yeah, like you're a real person. You're not just some little kid that just follows us around everywhere. So that's something that I definitely missed out on just because in my mind I was so much older and I kind of just always viewed them as so much younger than me.
I wouldn't envy your position, Joey. As the oldest, it just seems like a lot of responsibility, and yeah, being the test subject. And I know from personal experience as well as anecdotes that parents get less strict with the kids. I was very much babied. I think it shows. And yeah,
Baby? Wait, babied as far as like
Like
they.
spoiled or like more lenient, those types of things. Ultimately, it really means they
Yeah.
just don't care as much. So, I mean,
I think parents get more grandparenty as they get older, right?
Yeah.
And by the time they're grandparents, they're like in full grandparent mode. But some of that is learning.
no, some of it is just they look at it different. Like, so we're in a we're in a unique scenario to where our son, um, our adopted son, was fostered by Shayla's parents. Okay, and literally he went from their house to our house. In their house, they were very strict, and they're good parents. They're good grandparents. Like they're not like bad at anything like that. I'm just making fun of them. We tease them about this, but like they viewed it as parents, and they were had structure, and they were trying to help raise him to be a good boy. Literally just switching houses to where now he's a grandchild. They'll be like, oh, you want some candy, or like, oh, he can have a little more, or stuff like that. It's like
That is funny.
like he did not change age. It's literally the same kid. So it's pretty funny. But yeah, no, and so like for me, it's also interesting to see how parents when they look back, and it's probably something to do also with that leniency stuff, that is just looking back, they view things differently, and I'm sure that's going to happen to me too, as a parent. But like I would literally have my parents sometimes call me while I was at college and just be like, we're really struggling with this child, Joey. Like we raised you so right. Like how do we convey that to them? And then I have to remind them, like, that's not what you were telling me when I was at home. Like I was not this great child. You had stuff that you were bringing up to me. But it's kind of like the grass is greener on the other side. Is you look back and it's better, or it's in the future it'll be better. So we got to change. So it's not like the past. So I think that plays into how people parent or change their parenting. But also, if I'm just
And
getting older.
maybe, yeah. And maybe I think parents feel sort of the impending empty nest syndrome, or like circumstances coming about. And so as they get closer to that, they get a little more sentimental, and they see that coming. And so they want to relate to the kids more closely, more as friends, less as parent child, ruler subject. And so they like try to invest in those relationships more, and they're a little more lenient, a little more like fun.
Yeah, at some point,
Um,
the parent is no longer the authority that's inflicting discipline or making sure they get consequences. Instead, yeah, they are just a friend. And also some of it in a non-bad way. I think once they experience it with a couple kids, they're kind of excited about it for the upcoming ones, because they feel like it was scary at first. With the first few, it's kind of hard to let them go. And I think with the last one, it's probably scary too, because it's the final kid, and then what do we do? But like with a lot of those middle ones, it's kind of like, oh, it's kind of nice when they go, um, and they switch to being more just a friend, a family member versus a kid that you're responsible for. Yeah, like I'm excited for that. That's why I'm like I told Shayla, I don't care how many kids we have, we're just done by the time I'm 30. So that way they're all out of the house before I'm 50.
Yeah, totally. I'm okay. Hop into your topic, Joey.
Okay.
You know.
Were you gonna talk about how you were as the middle child for the sibling?
Um.
Or were we gonna skip it because
Sure.
you're a middle child? So that's kind of the point.
Yeah. Uh, Mark Lowry has a joke about middle child being lucky. No, no, it's actually the youngest child because he is the youngest. Being lucky to get their footprint on their birth certificate. When the first child is loaded with pictures
Right.
and all the glamour. Other than that, I can't think of another Mark Lowry joke. That's not the point.
I like how the one joke you did say wasn't even about middle children. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we edit that into my segment where I was talking about the youngest thing? That'd be great. You could just add that to my segment.
Sure, yeah. I can, yeah. So, being the second oldest, I feel that Casey did so much of the paving and plowing. I mean, he just laid down all the brush, and it was such. I mean, I trotted into my parents' livelihood. I had a very, very easy childhood.
And there's a bit of a gap there too, right?
6.5 years, yeah. That they were trying, that they were like wanting to get pregnant with me. And then after me, there's boop, boop, boop. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
I wish I was 29. I wish that I could have accompanied Casey more and not left him to be an only child, pretty much.
Because at that point, kind of like Joey was saying, you're sort of removed from it and you can be that friend or that grandparent or that, external character.
Exactly. Casey was given the opportunity to do that. And I remember such a difference when he left Brazil, went back to the States, and then came back to get married. It had only been like 8 months or something, but I was like, that's a whole new dude. And I like him a lot more than the other guy, actually. So, Kobe is probably the longest friend that I have had. Turning 23 next month. And he hasn't always been there, right? Like, he hasn't always been with me. 5 years I was in Michigan, but we kept in contact. And I wish that my two brothers and I would have been a little bit, or my three brothers and I would have been mingled a little bit more with my two sisters. Because I feel like having them at the bottom there, it was always the three boys and then the two girls.
Yeah, no, that is pretty interesting. Because, like, for my family, it basically, after myself and then Danny, it alternates boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl.
Yeah, totally.
So it was always weird to see your family where it's like it's split down the middle, like boys, girls. Okay, so my turn. My question for you guys is, do you think that the city of Atlantis was real?
Nope. See you guys in 2 weeks. I think Atlantis is like El Dorado. And it's based on a real place, but not nearly as glamorous or heavenly as it's described to be.
I do not think it is an actively, livable place. Like
Right,
it
it's not
is
like in that movie.
Aquaman.
Yeah. Oh, I was thinking like Atlantis.
Or Atlantis, the movie.
Yeah, that's what I was picturing.
Yeah, I think I probably fall somewhere where Colin's talking. I mean, there are ancient ruins that fit the vibes and the stories and stuff, and it makes sense that the city could have sunk something that well, like, um, ingrained in a culture and in the stories of a culture. I think there's probably some validity to it. And the oceans are, I think, what, only 10%, 80% of it is unexplored. We know more about space than we know about our oceans, so I think it's possible.
Do you think like the Atlantis or those ruins had like they were more technologically advanced than we thought, or it's just it was something where it was like they were completely normal. It just we hyped them up afterwards. Like there was nothing like out of the ordinary about it.
Well, I don't think they were too technologically advanced. I mean, their city sank. Um,
I think it'd be something like what's that city starts with a P with the volcano that like
Pennsylvania. Oh,
uh, took took them
yeah,
all
yeah,
out.
yeah. In Italy,
Maybe it's not a P. Is it a P?
yeah, yeah.
Vesuvius took out, yeah, the city
Pa-
of, yeah, it is a P.
Pompeii.
I don't know. Pompeii. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah.
That-
I think it would be something like. I heard the clicks. I think it would be something to that effect with Pompeii.
okay.
I think just like a lot of the ancient civilizations, they did things that we either can't do now, or are just finding out about the things. And we're like, oh, they already figured that out, and it's documented here. Why didn't we just look at that?
Yeah.
And or things that we just know we have the technology to do, and they didn't, as far as we know, but they did it, and we. So yeah, they. If it is a city and if it exists, I think it's feasible that they were technologically
Dude,
advanced.
I love thinking about stuff like that. Where like imagine an advancement in a technology, but it's ancient and it's those ancient civilization times. But they could be just as advanced as we are now, but they were in their like Noah's Ark, that time. There were sculptors, there were crafters who would be more incredibler than anybody today.
Definitely more incredible.
I'm convinced of that. I'm convinced of that being fact that people back then built things way better than we ever could today.
And we don't think of that, right? We think of those times as people being simple.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Well, and they say if the library in Alexandria, if it hadn't been destroyed, we'd be like 1,000 years more advanced than we are right now.
Whoa.
Not because that's where they were at, but just because of how far they were, we would have been able to build off of that. And because we lost that knowledge and that information, we're 1,000 years behind where we could have been.
Dude, that's
is that what
nuts.
what the Dark Ages was, or where it started? Because they lost that information.
Basically, or at least it contributed to
A
it.
stall in learning and development for like 1,000 years, which is crazy.
Because they didn't upload it to the Google Drive.
They didn't press record.
They just they just found another fragment of the Dead Sea Scrolls too, like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
And one cool thing about that is like because nowadays like we have so much available to us that we don't really pay attention to what we're consuming knowledge wise. We're like back then they couldn't just copy paste. They had to actually write down everything. But they were so serious, especially about like the Dead Sea Scrolls, where like if they messed up, they would have to toss the whole scroll, and so they'd start over so that it was perfect. And that's why things were able to be passed down with multiple writings, scripture and otherwise, because people were so intent on making sure future generations would know about it. And now it's like we have so much and we take it so much for granted that the internet's always going to be here. To where if that went down, it would be like the Library of Alexandria, but way more catastrophic, obviously.
I don't even favorite my links or recipes anymore. I just like assume that I'll find them again, and they'll be like purple instead of blue for the link, and I'll like find them again. Like I used to have like a very complex like library of saved favorites, and now I'm like, I'll find it. I'll look in my history or whatever. It's also interesting to note that those civilizations crashed and their technology did not continue. And that is theoretically possible for us. Something wipes us out, we get a little too cocky, a little too confident, and then we get wiped out and the technology does not get carried on.
Well, and it could even be something where we don't get wiped out. We just have to learn to live without whatever it was because it all crashed.
Some server bank in North Carolina crashes or something.
Yeah, and I guess and if enough people go, then it's like we can't rebuild it. Like Swiss Family Robinson, they knew the times that they were in, but they couldn't replicate it. They had to do some weak comparison, where that could very potentially be like with after a flood, or like with Noah and the ark, where it's like they had to start over. They knew everything from before, but they couldn't replicate everything, and so you have to start over.
Those 8 or 9 people didn't have all the skills. They weren't all carpenters and all architects and all mathematicians, and so that stuff didn't carry over necessarily.
Thanks, guys, for checking out our podcast. Just so we have some sort of